Welcome everyone to the WG's podcast. So this is Francho G3 on X, and I have the pleasure to introduce you to a guest that I wanted to have on the podcast for a while because of his great work on X, Private Eye Russ. So Russ, can you please introduce yourself?
First of all, thank you so much, my friend, for having me on. Blessings to you and everything you do going forward into the future. Thank you so much. I enjoy your content, and anybody who's following you knows that you put out gold all day, every day, on a consistent basis, and every single one of them is very thought-provoking. So my hat goes off to you. I might post a couple of times a day, and I'm running my brain at red line. So I have no idea how you do it. So again, salute to you, my friend. Private Eye Russ here. I am a licensed private investigator and bail bondsman here in the state of Florida. My background goes from, I grew up in the South Bronx in New York, college educated, went to school on an academic scholarship, joined the military, served in Desert Storm, Desert Shield, a few other places, worked for a couple of private military companies. I'm a licensed PI. I've been a bodyguard, executive protection specialist. I was a cop for a while. And so right now I do the private eye work, which has a lot of, it's very, very flexible in what you do. There's so many things you get into being a private investigator, as well as the bail bonds work. And so, so that's my background. If anyone wants to get in touch with me for any of my services, which, maybe we'll talk about at some point, but just email me at Gmail at privateinvestigatorruss@gmail.com, privateinvestigatorruss@gmail. I do have a website, but right now it's been going through some troubles just because the webmaster is a good friend of mine, and he has been dealing with grade 4 glioblastoma, which is very aggressive brain cancer. And so his faculties are such that he has all the passwords to everything. And so his wife has been trying to help me recover everything, but right now I can't do anything, and I don't really want to press the guy because he's fighting for his life. And so at some point I may actually start another website, or I've already contacted the hosting company to see if we can try to alleviate that. But obviously I don't want to lean on the guy while he's trying to stay alive. So if you could keep me in your prayers. His name is Ricardo.
All right, Ricardo, we hope you get better. It's shit to have cancer. And don't worry, Russ, I'll just put all of the necessary links in the description at the bottom, so people can peruse at their own will for the information. So thank you very much for your presentation. So when I was chatting with Russ, I was like, because Russ posts content every day on like stories that literally make you see the other side, of reality. You have what's on the surface, and you have what's behind. The dark side, let's say. And what was so interesting was the corroboration between my experience on the dark side and Russ, basically literally being that private eye, showing you everything. And some of the stories are just groundbreaking for a lot of people. For me, it was not so much of a shock, but it was great for illustration purposes. So in terms of the subject that we decided to talk today, it's about the biggest signs of infidelity, as Russ does a lot of surveillance work, hired by clients, and we're going to show you, and hopefully that will help you guys, if you're in a relationship or if you have a girlfriend, whatnot, to gauge the sign where things may be a bit rocky. So, Russ, can I ask you, what would you say is one key indicator? We know how you want to do it. We can do it from least important to most important, or most important to least important. So I'll give you the mic.
Okay. One of the biggest indicators is an obsession, a targeted obsession with a coworker, an associate that is a member of the opposite sex. And so, one of the things we saw is that women that they'll talk about someone they have an attraction to, but they'll express it to you as dislike or disdain. So that, oh, he did this, he did that, he's such a whatever. And if she's constantly bringing up the same individual, that is a huge, huge red flag. And so just from the numbers, from what we've seen, she either is or wants to hook up with this guy. And so that's one big red flag. And so the danger in that is that guys will look at that and not understand it for what it is. So, guys like us, men of the world who've been around, we would pick up on that immediately. And that's not to disparage anyone else's experience. Without this experience, you just don't know. If you don't know, you don't know. But if a woman is obsessed with another guy, even if that obsession sounds like she dislikes that guy, especially the more intense dislike or disdain for this individual, you can draw a direct correlation to how much she actually wants to hump this guy and get naked with him, to be more blunt. And so, when guys see that, and these are indicators, it doesn't mean that they are, but these are things that should make you raise your antenna and start to pay more attention. And I think with guys, we have a tendency to, you marry a woman, she's here. What guys tend to forget is that you might marry this woman today. 6 months from now, she may be a completely different person. And so a year from now, she may be they call it, I outgrew him. Not necessarily. They just change. They change their mind. They change their, so many external factors have a profound effect, and it does on everybody. Your environment does have an effect on you, but with women, especially if they're around other women and they're working with the same people every day, and so you have to look at it from this standpoint. Your wife or significant other is spending more waking hours with the man at her job than she is with you. And so how likely is it that they're going to grow in attraction? Very likely, especially, and again, people think, if she's a 9 or a 10, it's more. No. I've seen women that were sub 5s, 3s and 4s that were cheating on their husbands with coworkers. And so, there is no, I know people have this, I don't know who advanced this narrative that you have to look a certain way and be a certain height and weight and this sort of thing in order to, women won't cheat on you. I've seen men that were literally, I worked on a case where I just told a story, a guy was a giant. When I say giant, this guy was 6'9", professional athlete, 6'9", professional athlete, but not a sloppy 6'9", jacked. You know what I mean? Wealthy. And so people have this thing where they think, oh, this guy's not. No, man, I worked on a case, and this will be an exclusive for your people. And I'll tell the story later on, but your people will hear this first. I worked on a case where a guy literally is an adult film actor. That's what he does. His wife was cheating on him. Think about this. That's what he does for a living. Guys don't get to do that, right? And this woman cheated on this guy. And so I remember, I'm just like, holy smokes, man. And so, coworkers, associates, that's one big, the obsessive behavior about these individuals. And so, women, they're good at hiding some things, but not everything. If they have a real desire for an individual, it will seep out. It will ooze out, whether they want it to or not. And so to try to control that, the appearance of desire, they'll mask it and talk trash about the person.
Hold on, I'd just like to add a point on this, because when it comes to communication, here what is important. It's not so much what she says, but it's the fact that she said it, in the sense that you find yourself in a situation where, why would you need to say something about someone if you don't care about that person? And hate, dislike, and love, like, is a different side of the same coin. So always think the medium. Guys will look at face value because that's how we communicate. We think, can you just turn the heating on? That's how we do. A girl will say, it's cold. Same thing. So bear that in mind. And the other thing, which is very important, I think the second lesson from this is, when you park your car in the hood, don't be surprised that it gets stolen, no matter how good the locking system is. And that guys can understand. It's not about you being insecure. It's just you understanding that opportunity makes the thief. Or what was the expression you said? I think it was, locks keeps people honest.
Yep. Locks keep honest people honest.
There you go. So that's just kind of like the little 2 pointers I wanted to add to what you said, because I think it was really important. But anyway.
How did you say that in French? You had a French saying for that.
L'opportunité fait le larron.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to copy that, because every time I try to speak French to, I have a couple of French friends. Whenever they try to get me to pronounce things, they always have this look, like I can almost hear them saying, "You swine." You know what I mean? My French accent is horrible, and it just is. It's just pretty bad. And it's funny because I actually used to speak Arabic fluently. I was fluent in Arabic.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke Arabic. I spoke some Hindi, German, and obviously English. Because living in the Middle East, North Africa, those languages are very useful. But yeah, obsessing about a male coworker. Another one that is very relevant today is her phone. Most people live their entire lives in their phone, their mobile phone. And so if you guys are in partnership, say marital or a significant other, and you cannot access her phone, or she's very secretive about her phone, or if she's texting or receives a text message and you're close by and she's shielding the phone from your view, that is more than a red flag. Unless she works for the CIA, you know what I mean, and she's undercover, she's hiding a text from a suitor or a male that's trying to get in her pants or a male that's already in her pants. And so that's more than a red flag. That's kind of a stop sign, especially nowadays because of social media and all the dating apps and so many other things. What I try to tell guys is this, is when you look at the dating apps, close to or maybe half the women on dating apps are married women. All right. About half of them are married on dating apps. How do I know? Initially, when I got separated, I made the mistake of going into dating apps. I actually did okay. I actually met a lot of women on the dating apps. But I took one woman we went to a restaurant and, had something to eat. And a buddy of mine was texting me, but I wasn't paying attention to my text. I said, I'll look at it later. You know what I mean? And so we're driving, we went back to her place. I'm driving home. I look at it. Literally, there's something like 20 text messages and a couple of phone calls from the same person. And so I'm like, okay, maybe it was an emergency. I better check. So I called him and said, dude, what's going on? He said, hey, man. He said, I saw you at dinner tonight at such and such. And I was like, yeah, okay. How come you didn't say hi? He's like, she's married. I said, no, she's not. He said, yeah, she's married, bro. And I said, dude, I met her on a dating app. He said, bro, I know her husband. She's married. She's like, wait, we went back to her place. He said, that's their rental property you took her to. That's not where she lives. And I was like, what the hell? And yeah, and she had this whole other persona. You like a whole nother persona. Like she was an undercover, drug agent for the DEA or something. And so when you start looking at some of the dating apps, there's a lot of guys that have women, the so-called men who call themselves, I'm secure in my relationship. I'm not insecure. I trust. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You go ahead and do that all you want. Exactly. I'm like, and half the women on these apps are married women, and so I would caution guys into getting into there's an old term I think Ronald Reagan coined, trust but verify. And you have to have, when you have a women are constantly changing. Constantly. I think we can agree on that. They're never going to stay the same. Like I got buddies that are exactly the same as they were with Desert Storm, Desert Shield today, exactly the same. Like me, I'm a boring person in a lot of ways. Like I'll eat the same thing every day for a month. Chicken breast and sweet potatoes, chicken breast and oatmeal for breakfast, chicken like I'll do that every single day and I'm fine with it. Women are constantly like this. And so, and not to say that they're bipolar or that it's any sort of mental illness, this is just the nature of them. And so if you understand something, you can't be angry at it, right? And so, the stuff I say, I've been accused of hating women. I don't hate women. I'm not a woman hater. I'm not a misogynist. It's about trying to, like yourself, trying to educate men. And because we are not playing on an even playing field, women are way ahead of men, like way, way ahead of us. Not even close. Have you found the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm going to start. So when I was younger and I was a bit short of money, what I was doing was basically getting with cougars and MILFs. All right. So, because I knew that they have the logistics. Otherwise, on my dad's car, I mean, he's not going to watch this, but it's been very useful on occasions. But I need to find a place to basically lay with them. When, it's like, so I was going onto their cars, not sometimes a hotel, but what I've noticed, it was actually married women were easier than divorcees. Like, that was me, like, 19, 18, 20, even even when I was in London, what happened is that I was living near very leafy suburbs, with a lot of yummy mummies, all that type of stuff, soccer moms, all that. There was a bar full of them. And it's like, so not only would I get paid drinks, but on top of that, they would literally, they would drive back to my place to get fucked up before they actually goes to their husband. I said, oh, but we had a girls' night out. The girls' night out. Not girls' trip, girls' night out. And when you see that, you're like, fuck me. Also, another thing which you said, which is very, very important, it is girls change. Guys be thinking good girl, bad girl. No, they're on the spectrum. Meaning by that, at this point in time, she will be like that, and then she'll be something different, and she's gonna be different. And when you think you got yourself a good girl, mate, this is just your Disney fairy tale that makes you think that there's wife materials, there's not wife material. Yes, you have some girls that are better than others, and then you have girls that are not as good as others. But what you should look for in a girl is how one is attracted to you, rather than how well you place her into your good girl, bad girl Manichaeism. So that when she's attracted to you, she's less likely to stray. So those are and what was the other thing that you said? So it was this, and yeah, and they're way ahead of you. A girl at 25 has the experience of a guy at 45 or maybe 40. It really depends, right? So if you don't have that experience, you're gonna get bamboozled big time.
Yeah, young women will run circles around young men, even older men in some instances. Matter of fact, and maybe I'll share some of this with you. I had a 27-minute. I was able to record, and with her permission, a 27-minute conversation with a woman that we bonded out, and this has to do with the bail bondsman that was arrested for, instead of accepting money to bond women out, he was accepting sexual favors to bond them out. And so he wanted to be arrested. Yeah, he wanted getting arrested. And so I brought that up. I talked to her. This woman's 34 years old. She's a career escort. You know when she started her career?
16.
How old she was? 15 years old.
15 years old.
15 years old. She was already, working this thing. And even all the dangers, and she told me just different attacks and things that have happened. I'm sitting there like, okay. And so, one of the questions I asked her was, I said, so are you being trafficked? She was like, no. I said, so why do women get into this? And she said, because it's easy. She says, number one, I like having sex. Number two, it's the easiest way to make money quickly. And so I was like, and so, so we bonded her out and bonded out a few times. Not a, I was gonna say not a bad person, but obviously she's got a drug habit, which she uses a few, but she owns a small business.
She wasn't
Yeah, there's another woman we bonded out. This woman is in Orlando. There's a neighborhood called Islesworth. Islesworth is where Tiger Woods used to live when he was attacked by his ex-wife. And she hit him with the golf club because he was messing with the neighbor's daughter. It's very, very affluent, very wealthy area. Every now and then she'll just get the call of the wild and literally put an ad and work as an escort in the cheapest, nastiest motels. And this is a wealthy woman. Like it's amazing. And so, and this, it goes across socioeconomic boundaries, and there is no, okay, women from here do this, women from there do that. Now, are there some societal pressures that make it unlikely? Yes, there are. And so I actually worked on a case where a gentleman, he's a doctor. Obviously I won't put anybody's name out there.
of course.
Very analytical guy, very intelligent guy. He's done what I would advise every man to do. You have to research the person you plan on giving access to your time, your money, your house, and your children. You have to do research. Your life is a business. So no business is going to go into a merger with another company without doing what's called the due diligence. And so that's some of what we help. Now, when I looked at what he reached, he said, okay, look, I want you to look further. He said, I want you to look further. He said, I want to make sure that I'm making a good decision with this woman. And guess what? We've got a scoring system. So what I'll do is I'll actually assign a score of good risk, high risk versus low risk. This one is actually the lowest one we've rated so far as being low risk. She has led an incredibly disciplined life. And I mean, like I had one researcher look, and he was like, dude, this is crazy. He said, I've never seen anybody this clean. And so I looked, I was like, and I had another, and so we just kept looking and looking. And this is, barring anything else new coming up, she is a good risk. Now, I don't say zero risk, because again, we're talking about women, so no one is going to be zero risk, but she is a very low risk. And I expressed this to him. I was like, look, she's extremely low risk. And I had guys keep looking because I was like, this doesn't make sense. But we've actually covered all of her bases from every place she's lived, friends, associates, even ex-boyfriends. And we're just like, holy cow, she actually was a decent person. But she's also very disciplined, and she's also in the STEM field as well too. So people who are very analytical tend to not have that wild streak to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so he got lucky, but most people are not that lucky.
Yeah.
He's not really lucky. He was actually a very purposeful decision.
But I thought there was gonna be something. I thought there was gonna be like, oh, but she did something in the background. No, nothing.
No, this one she was and again, this is unusual. Usually there's something. So what I usually caution guys about is like, look, you're not going to find somebody who lived like Snow White. It just it just doesn't happen. I said so you have to understand it. It's going to be an acceptable amount of whatever. You know, you hear guys talking online sometimes about marrying a virgin. Good luck. Good luck finding a virgin. Good luck. Good luck. Like, look, this woman I interviewed yesterday and talked to yesterday, 15 years of age. Well, she had her first child at 14. She was on Backpage advertising at 15. And I live in a decent neighborhood, and we've had neighborhood girls that were 12 years old. And I've had neighbors come to me and say, look, my daughter took one of our cars. She came back. Her clothes were, she got drunk. Her clothes were disheveled. Like, this actually happened. And so they came to me and they said, what do we do? I said, well, first thing you need to do is get a rape kit. Go to the hospital, get a kit, call the police and say, we need to check. And, she's been messing around. She's 12 years old. She's already sexually active. And so, to those guys, I say, okay, good luck with the virgin thing. Good luck. You're going to be like Indiana Jones trying to find the Holy Grail.
No, but and the thing is, for me as well, I used to date with this girl. I used to date this girl, right? Right. And after we broke up, because whatever, like that bullshit, she was coming from a upper middle class background. No history of abuse, nothing whatsoever. And she went into escorting. And I was playing the the bodyguard, in the car just behind. Just say, is it all right? Is it cool? Yeah, all right, it's cool, all right. And like, she was making money. She was giving me a bit of money at the same time. I mean, I was not, anyway. And the people that she met was like this level in society, and she was making like thousands a week, and and I was like, do you even want to work? And she's like, why the fuck would I be a waitress for when I get this money and I get to actually meet all those high-end people, politics, high corporate people,
Yeah. And look, and fair enough. It's just, I think people in society need to get over this belief that women that do this are forced. Now, are there some people that get forced? Yes, there are. But it's much more rare than we were previously led to believe. And so I think there are more women that get into this voluntarily than are actually being forced. So how do you traffic yourself? Well, you can't, so they're not really being trafficked. This is something they chose to do. And so, again, that whole Disney princess thing you brought about, I think men have been victimized more by the Disney princess, Prince Charming myth than women have, because men actually believe that they're going to find this perfect woman and I've had to deliver some heartbreaking news to guys. I would rather deliver that news on the front end before you're heavily invested than try to help you put the pieces together on the back end. Spend some time, do the research on the front end before you make that investment, and at least you can make an informed decision, which is all any of us should ever hope to have, an informed decision. But and again, it's not the only woman I've talked to that's been in this business. I've talked to women that were porn, like adult film actresses. That's what they do for a living. A lot of them will work as escorts as well too, and some of them just enjoy having sex with multiple men. And like some of them told me, look, I can't have one guy. I can't be satisfied with one guy just because it wasn't about the size of the guy or body type. They said they need variety
like guys.
constantly. Just because, they need variety constantly. And I've talked to women that have had thousands of bedroom fun partners, thousands, man, and over years of doing that. That's a huge numbers. And so now the danger with women is that once you condition yourself, and this is your baseline of conditioning, how do they walk away from that? Which is a perfect segue into another red flag. She has a promiscuous past. Women who come from a very promiscuous past, and again, this is not to put them down or to shame anybody, but at the end of the day, they may be able to resist what I call the call of the wild. Like this woman, I talked about this wealthy woman who lives in literally a mansion, super wealthy, successful husband, and who every now and then she gets this call of the wild. I actually worked on because he was like, what is she doing? She would just disappear. She said she's on a business trip. No, she was actually still in the Orlando area putting ads in some of the online websites for escort ads. And she would just, and she didn't need the money. Like I've seen a bunch of these cases where they don't need the money, and again, we have this belief that women who get into this are impoverished, and the only reason they would do this is because they need to put food on the table. This 15-year-old, she actually did. She got thrown out of her house because she got pregnant, and then her father found out she did this or that, and he threw her out of the house. I'm not excusing bad behavior. However, that's what she chose, and so you can kind of understand that from that perspective. But, if you're a wealthy woman, with a pool in the backyard and the, 4-car garage and the, 10 bedroom mansion, and you're doing this on the side as a side gig, it's not for money.
It's for thrill.
It's not for money. Yeah. I have to. I mean, I don't know what's going on in mind, but that actually makes sense. And because of danger, you know what I mean? The thing that because it's a risk. It's a risky lifestyle.
Think about it this way. You got your money, you got your comfort, you got your infrastructure, you got everything. It's like, why do the women watch all those serial killer shows? It's because I'm always creating a bit of drama inside me, right? Why do they want to have fun? Because they're too bored inside the relationship. Whereas before you had duty as a wife, as a woman, to keep the family structure done. Now you don't have that structure. So therefore it's free flowing, and whatever narrative is needed to be seen, such as of course, a woman can have how many partners they want. There's no consequence to it. Oh, you're insecure if you don't let your girl go to girls' night outs or girl trips or etc. etc. But what you see is here, for example, is the digital world is giving a gateway for women to do and try everything. Whereas before, say for example, they have to go on Figueroa to basically be on the street. Everybody can see. They know where to be located. But on those websites, you have so many websites. How can you do those things? Unless you hire someone like you can't. You can't.
And so again, quick segue, two of them actually, girls night out, girls trips. And so, women on girls nights out. You and I have both been out at clubs or bars and seen that both men and women that are out there dressed their black dresses or whatever and acting as horny as they can, and they're just ready to give it away to whoever strikes their fancy. And you and I have probably been the beneficiary of this behavior on more than one occasion. And so if you, as a man, watch your wife get dressed up, and she's dressed up better than when she goes out with you, and she is literally literally going out with her friends who are dressed the same way, saying, "Oh, we dress this way for each other." They're lying. It's a like they're locked. There is no gray area. They're either hooking up with a guy or they're looking for a guy to hook up with because their friends are there to protect them. And also, what we found as well too, we've uncovered several
important
cheating co-ops, I guess you could call it, where women cheat. Yeah, and they help each other with the cover story. So, they do things like take a bunch of selfies at the beginning of the night with all together, with their faces all pushed together like women do, with their faces up against I don't know how they do that, but whatever. And then they'll go off with Chad, Tyrone, Guillermo, Rob, Mohammed, Rashid, or whoever, you know what I mean?
Ricky Rant.
Chad, whatever the version is, every single geographical area, every race has their own version of that dude that you don't want your wife to meet. You know what I mean? And they go off, do this thing, and then go back and finish the girls' night out, and then they post a couple of pictures online, and they all post the same pictures together. And if you question any of them, they'll gaslight you and say, "Oh, you're insecure. I was with my friends the whole time. You think my friends would ever tolerate that? Yeah, they would. Yeah, they would, and they do, and they support each other and they back each other. They would be really good at creating spy networks because they create a legend. A legend is we should call a legend is your cover story. So your legend is just a fake ID. Your legend is your whole backstory. What was your mother's name, your father's name, where did you grow up, where did you go to college, where did you go to grammar school, who was your best friend growing up, all these different things. Your legend, and they will create a legend, and the husband is at home with the kids. You know what I mean? While the wife is out, literally getting splattered by the DNA, whatever. Exactly. Or like I like to say, getting their guts pounded into tuna patties. You know what I mean? Um, and again, some of these dudes are, they're too meek around their spouses. My ex's friends used to want to do this, and so she talked a little bit about it, and I said, and she said, well, what would you think if I asked you that? And it's exactly what I told her. I said, you can go wherever you want. You can go wherever you want. That's what you want to do. I said, but if you do, your stuff will be outside and the locks will be changed. I said, I'm just not going to deal with it. I'm not going to put up with it. And the funny thing is, and I wrote about this before, where the husbands of these women, because women will try to recruit others. So they were trying to recruit mine. And her thing was like, she actually did like to stay home. You know what I mean? And we hung out at home a bunch and a lot of other things, but they were trying to recruit her and pull her into that dark web of deception because the more the merrier. And so the husbands tried to, barbecues or whatever. The husband's like, oh, I let my wife go do what she wants and la la la. I trust my wife. I'm secure in my relationship. Yep. Yeah, exactly. I'm secure in my relationship and it's not a big deal. So la 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 la. And so when I split with my ex, I actually did a little bit of research because a couple of these guys, for lack of a better term, were just really self-righteous cocksuckers. And so I was like, okay, so let's go ahead and see how loyal your wife is, champ. And one of their wives is on a dating app. She's one of those married women on a dating app. Husband has no idea because he trusts his wife because she's so honest and so righteous. The other one is currently getting smashed by a guy that I know. He's not a friend of mine, but I know they're hooking up. And I'm sitting here like this. So the guys, look, whenever you let a woman set a boundary or a baseline, well, this is what I do, and this is how I do it, and this is the way it's going to be. You have to have the courage to say, okay, bye. You know what I mean? And be willing to walk away. The problem is they know that if they present men with some of these things, some of these, line in the sand type scenarios, that a lot of guys are going to back off because God forbid we be called insecure, right? And so that's the big scary thing. Oh, you're insecure. No, I'm not insecure. I have certain things that I will and will not accept. And more men need to exercise that right to say, no, I'm not going to accept this behavior. Sorry. And so, the girls' trips, the same thing. Like I sold a story about a group of friends. They were all, and it wasn't like they had partners that they'd been hooking up with all along. They just met guys when they got to their destination. And me and the people that I had doing surveillance with me, at the end of this is a few days, we were all exhausted, man. Like we were literally exhausted. I was like, oh my God. And then they go back home to their husbands, act like nothing happened. They act like nothing happened. And so a wife will go out and drink someone else's DNA and with no problem whatsoever, go home and kiss her husband. Yeah. Hey, husband, how you doing? Yeah. And knowing that they got somebody else's DNA on their lips. And so it's diabolical. It's evil, but guys need to be more cognizant, and they need to be
secure. And I'll tell you why it's secure to do this.
More suspicious.
If you're worried about insecurity because of your shaming of the wife, why? Because you're afraid that you're losing her. So if you're afraid you're losing her because you cannot enforce your line in the sand, who's insecure now? I like to pick up on some of the things that you said. So we're talking about, I call the group of friends the board of bitches, right? Because that's where all the decisions being made. The board of bitches. So it's not only on the back end where they have that legend, but it's also on the front end. You won't find as good as a sidekick or wing woman than a married woman to a friend. They know it's now or never. So there's no pussyfooting around. They're like, "Oh, go ahead, he's such a handsome lad." Yeah, that's the lady. So no need to basically push the girl straight to the guy's arm, but on the back end, they set up the narrative necessary to actually but gaslight the guy, and don't trust obviously any of your friends because everything is already set up. And also think about it. Look at who your friends are, because birds of a feather flock together. That's also very important.
Yeah, that's a huge red flag, and I'm glad you brought that up. But yeah, if your wife or significant other is hanging out with a bunch of, let's just call it what they are, slags, I guess they call them in the UK. They call them slags, hoe bags, whatever you want to call them. She's not the one that's trying to preach the gospel to them. She's not. She's not hanging out with them with the Bible, trying to read Bible verses to them as they're doing their performing their behavior. She's there with them, just like you or I couldn't hang out with people who were diametrically opposed to our beliefs or our behavior. It's the same thing with them. Guys, another thing guys have to understand is that what we found is women will use existing what we used to call pattern of life. Right. So if I'm building a target package on French OG, right? So if I want to put a bag over your head or put a bullet in your face, right? I've got to build a target, or we want to extort you or blackmail you or whatever they want to do, right? I've got to build a package on you. The package has to show me what does he do, where does he go, who does he hang out with, his habits, his vices. People, we'll look for vulnerabilities, but also the pattern of life, and any deviance from that pattern of life in most people's eyes or perception will raise a red flag. And so what women will do is they will establish a pattern of life and use that pattern of life to create opportunities or hide their infidelity within that pattern of life. And so again, we've had women that were messing around with one that was messing around with a yoga instructor. Well, that was what she would do. She would go to her yoga class that was supposed to be a regular group yoga class, right? But this guy owned the yoga studio, and she would be in the private studio. I'm sure there was some yoga involved. Type poses involved. But while everyone else was doing a regular class, she was getting her private lesson. Now the husband thought she was just driving there, going to her regular yoga class and again, so they'll hide everything within plain view. So right in front of you, they'll do these things. And again, women are way more advanced than guys. A lot of the stories I post are about women cheating just because men are really easy to catch. They're very easy to catch.
Very important.
Men don't have a network,
to
back them up and give them a cover story. Along with, you have to have somebody backing you up. You have to have a wingman or a group of wingmen, but most guys don't. Most guys go solo, lone wolf. And so you're much more vulnerable. Women will create entire scenarios, and then they will all jump on board to gaslight you together if you challenge their story. And so what happens to most guys? Most guys will get intimidated because, God forbid, I'd be called insecure. Ooh, I don't want that. And they back off. And then they win because now you've just reinforced her authority over your perception. You know what I mean? And so, again, men need to stop being so meek, need to stop being so easily intimidated by perceptions or people gaslighting. You have to become gaslight proof. You have to become fireproof. And so, and we look at, obviously solo travel, male friends. And so this is another one of those things that gets established from the very beginning. Oh, that's just Charlie. He's my friend. He's like a brother to me. Look, here's the thing. I have one female friend that's actually a friend, and she's 85 years old. She's 85 years old. So there's absolutely every other woman I know, if I, I either put them in two categories. I would or I wouldn't. That's it. And so, the male friend thing, even if they've had that male friend for a long time, they either used to mess with that male friend, they are messing with that male friend, or that male friend desperately wants to get in her pants and just hang around looking for an opportunity. That should be a red flag.
Even
I'm
now,
sure you've seen guys fall prey to this before, right? As well.
She's like, there's this guy. He's really into her and shit, right? He sent her, like, they've traveled, etc., right? She mentioned it about me She mentioned about me and said, yeah, like, because we're kind of really good friends and everything. And she says, oh yeah, it's we used to have sex in the past, just once, right? Like once, when we started dating and everything. And then afterwards, he said, but no, we don't. And, so, and what about now? So, oh no, we don't do it anymore. She was there last week, and the guy's paying shit. I'm telling you, man, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and again, it's a huge red flag. As men, we understand. I don't hang out with women that I'm not trying to hump. Unless it's a business function or something of that nature. Like the women I know, some of my neighbors, especially some of the older ladies, a couple of widows, they need help. They're older. We had some hurricanes. They reach out to me. They need help. Outside of that, it's either I would or I wouldn't. And that's generally how the male dating works. Some people say this, oh, you need to evolve or whatever. Sorry. Okay, whatever. Yeah, whatever with your evolving thing. The only men who are willing to hang out with women that they are not attracted to have dicks that don't work anymore. Guys with working dicks want to smash attractive women that they're attracted to. And so, as men, you have to understand if a woman will present herself to you from the very beginning, so, I have male friends I hang out with, I go to sports bars. That's a chick, I'll hang out with her, but don't get involved with her long term because, she could still have some use. She could still have utility, but that's not the one you want to attach your life to long term. It's a horrible risk. We're talking about risk factors. High risk. That's an innately high risk. And it's like the woman who travels by themselves, the solo traveler. Being European, France, UK, you've seen American women. How easy are the American women that are traveling by themselves? Easy. Exactly. So look, American women are here.
Let's have some fun. I'll tell a story about an American woman. That was when I went to Vegas with work. I was working for a tech company. We had like the sales kickoff in Vegas and everything. Went to the hackathon and all that. Then I was with a coworker, a sales engineer, and we're on our way back, taking the cab back to our kick. And I saw this, the porcelain blonde with five young brothers, a bit hoodlums and everything. I was like, all right. I said to the sales engineer, this is where I leave you, my friend. So, what are you going to do? I'm going to go and talk to that woman. So she said, five guys. Like, yeah. So I go there. I start speaking with the woman and everything. I'm happy, all that. The five guys, they leave. I had game, I guess. End up basically going to the hotel with her. She had a period. She was basically on a girls' trip with her, and her boyfriend was basically having problems with her boyfriend and everything. Crying in the middle of sessions. I'm just like, the bed full of fucking blood. I'm just like, anyway, shit show. Next day, she was 21. Like I checked the ID when she was, just in case. And like she goes completely crazy. It's like, oh my god, what do you like? And for me, I was like, I offered to go to Taco Bell around lunchtime to kind of like do the aftercare type of shit. Her mom was coming from fucking Scottsdale to pick her up because her friend died and all of her friends were wondering where she was. And then basically called her mom. Mom went to Scottsdale, was waiting in the lobby of the hotel. I was like, whoa, this was too easy. And I was worried I was going to get myself in fucking police custody over rape allegation because apparently she was. And that was so easy.
Yeah. And again, I've been in different countries and I've met women all over the place. And me as a man solo traveling is easy. As women, I've seen women solo traveling, and I knew one woman that was just literally, she made it a point to sleep with a different dude every single day, and it was just like, holy smokes, man. And sometimes multiple dudes in the same day. She wasn't making anybody wear protection, and so she was just a big science experiment. And again, it's just like, look, man. Sometimes the easiest is the most costly, or can potentially be the most costly. And so you dodged the bullet there, my friend. And women traveling by themselves, another one that is a big red flag. All right, and this is going to be, people aren't going to want to hear this, but if you're, and this is coming from the military side, if your significant other or wife is working with a bunch of fire breathing dragons, we're talking about the apex predator men. You know what I mean? Hunters, killers, meat eaters, pipe hitters, whatever you want to call it. If she's working with those guys, she's getting smashed. She's getting smashed by one of them or multiple of them. Just because of the nature of these guys and they're working with. A similar thing is if your wife is working with a bunch of men that make a lot more money than you do, very closely with them. You know what I mean? Like, say for instance, she's the assistant to the CEO or whatever else, or whatever she might do, and she's dealing with a lot of very wealthy, powerful guys on a regular basis. She's going to start giving up the cheeks to some of those dudes. And one of the ways to tell is distancing. And again, another red flag is lack of respect. So public disrespect. Any woman who will disrespect you publicly either will or already is cheating on you. It's not if, it's when. Why? Because a woman can only serve one master at a time. You're her master, or someone else is her master. Once you see the transition, once you go from being her master to her thinking someone else is the master, then the behavior will change on a dime with you. Why? She's a servant to her boss.
Sorry.
Or whoever else it is that as being superior to the pecking. And so, again, that's another red flag.
Yeah.
Look, I tell guys, look, if your woman is bold enough to disrespect you publicly, you need to walk away from her. Never tolerate disrespect. Never, ever, ever. And but you see too many guys. I don't know culturally how it is in the United Kingdom or Europe, but here in the United States of America, people think it's funny to disrespect their husbands in front of their peers. If she's disrespecting you in front of strangers, in front of your friends and family and your coworkers,
you're paying the ransom,
this woman doesn't respect you. If you don't have respect,
you're the hostage who's paying his own ransom.
You need to walk away.
Crazy. Jesus.
But so many guys do it. And people laugh about it. Oh boy, she's so funny. Oh wow, she's got culturally, it's a very, very bad thing that we've gone there. In the United States of America, culturally, when it comes to relationships, we have failed horribly for a very long time. But that failure and the symptoms or the reasons for that failure have become the norm. And so public disrespect, that's another huge red flag. I'm never tolerated. If a woman's going to disrespect you publicly,
the moment that I feel that a woman disrespects me, I know it's pretty much it's over. It's over
probably seen
because
the same thing.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And you can either basically live with your dignity or basically entertain the shit until basically it breaks you from within.
Yeah. And I knew a guy who he wanted to divorce his wife, but his situation was different. And I don't envy him at all, but he wanted to divorce his wife very early on, but his children became the issue. Not so much about custody, but because there were members of her family that were people you would not want to leave alone with children. And so he knew that his wife wouldn't protect their children, if you understand what I'm saying, without me saying it. You know what I mean? And so, and I asked him, I said, how did you deal with this, man? He said, look, I resolved myself that I'm going to have to eat a shit sandwich every day, 3 times a day for as long as I have to my children. And I didn't envy the guy, but also too, I still salute him because, he had to sacrifice a lot to be in position to protect his children. He did protect them, but he had to deal with all types. Like he said, he had to eat a shit sandwich, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Which he did, but
just for our audience that may not necessarily be as clued up, like, could you just say a little bit more without revealing too much about protecting their children from who, what, or who? Okay.
Individual history behaving inappropriately with children, without being too graphic about it. The wife even admitted that this individual behaved inappropriately with her brother, with his own son. And she actually used that as leverage against the guy to keep him with her, to hold it over his head like the sword of Damocles. Well, if you divorce me, you're not going to get full custody, and he'll be safe with you. But what about when he's with me and my dad comes to visit? And so this is diabolical, evil woman. Like, this was just evil incarnate, and she was using her son, her children, and deviant behavior as a way of controlling her husband. And for a time it
it's tough because if you're a father, you want to protect your children.
Told, well, just leave.
Can't.
With that family. How many guys have you seen or know that marry into a family
like that, right?
and
Look
he's
at where your girlfriend,
with his
potential
in-laws,
future wife is coming from. If it's like, the mother, I mean, the father is a completely handpicked husband, you know that it's going to be a lot of problems. If she's a single mom, most likely she's going to be a feminist. So it's going to be like a lot of the system and the structure that you set in place for yourself are going to be constantly challenged because that's not where she's coming from. And it's one thing to have frame per se, but it's all a matter of odds. Are you stacking the odds in your favor or not? No matter how strong your frame is, there's always going to be those external factors. The same reason that basically your girlfriend may be one friend away from cheating on you, in the sense of one female friend telling her the wrong shit, or that male friend being at the right place at the right time. Same thing with a family. If the family is shit, then guess what? You're most likely going to create shit because that person is going to mix her shit background to your shit background. Ooh.
Yeah, yeah, and too many guys just kind of wing it. Women do a lot of research on men, a ton of research. They'll watch everything you do. They'll catalog everything you do, and if they see any variation from, again, we talk about that baseline or that pattern of life, you know, uh, file they have in their head of your behavior. But so many men just stay completely oblivious and clueless to the things, some of the things that go around. And again, they don't do the research on the front end. You got to research the family, or you should research the family. At the very least, you should be researching this woman's past because that gives you the best clue, not always a perfect roadmap, but the best clue to what her future is going to be like. And so, again, you got to be really, really careful. Another one is the free agent. So the woman that just wants to do her own thing. And when you're talking about marriage or a significant other or family dynamics, a lot of it is about accountability. And so if that woman does not want to be accountable to you, she wants to go and do what she wants to do without telling you anything, without cluing you in on anything, that's more than a red flag. That's more than a red flag. That's actually a stop sign. And so, but again, you'd be surprised how many guys I've done work for who saw these clues on the front end but ignored them. And men have this way of ignoring red flags. And again, if you have a woman that just wants to do her own thing, and you're married, and she wants a separate bank account for herself, but yours is a joint bank account. This is not a partner. You're there to pay the bills, and she's just going to do her own thing, and that includes possibly stepping out and getting involved with someone else outside the marriage physically. And again, it goes back to the one of the previous ones, is the lack of respect. A woman that does not respect you does not, culturally and legally, there are no repercussions for a woman leaving a man. Used to be, maybe centuries ago.
Yeah.
If a woman left her husband or protector or whatever, then guess what? She'd be eaten by lions and bears and who knows what, right? Because men are physically, stronger, or at least we should be stronger, tougher, more capable physically. And so now with the government doing as many things as they do, so woman can she can steal your sperm, sperm jack you, which I've talked about. I'm actually going to putting together a video about companies that help facilitate sperm jacking. It's not, we call it, or forced paternity or sperm. So a woman can do this to you, and there are no repercussions. It's not illegal anywhere on the planet, my friend. They can do this and take your DNA. And once it's proven that it's yours, even though it was used through fraudulent means or criminal means, or not even criminal means, it's not illegal anywhere. And you still have to, for child, however long it takes for the next 18 years or whatever else to support the child. And so, again, we talk about the laws and men not having knowledge of what the laws are, what they're like. And so a lot of guys don't understand no fault divorce. That's in the favor of women. They don't understand absolute liability when it comes to paternity. Once it's proven that your DNA is what impregnated, your DNA material impregnated that woman and produced that child, you're liable. And the judge is just going to, you're just liable. That's it. It's a wrap. You're finished. And so we worked on a case where a guy, this happened to the man, and the judge, even with the evidence, even with the woman admitting that she used one of these kits, these home pregnancy or insemination kits, to impregnate her, this guy had to pay child support for the next, until the child was an adult. So he still, got 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 pressed into that. So he's going to pay that for the next 18 years. And so, and then even further in the state of Florida, if I'm married and my wife steps out and gets pregnant by another man, unless that man is willing to claim legal and financial responsibility for that child, I'm legally bound to support that child financially. Think of how messed up. Think of how messed up and skewed that those laws are that put men on the chopping block, and they will just sacrifice you. And part of it is men don't go vote enough. Men should go vote more. And the whole system is geared towards men. And so one of the reasons that prompted me to start posting some of these stories. And again, it's not about hating women. I don't hate, but most guys don't have an understanding of what actually goes on. So I had a good friend I grew up with, Richard. Richard got married, had a child. Him and his wife got separated a year into when the child, years later, even though they had a shared custody agreement by the state of New York, right? 6 years later, he never got to see wouldn't enforce his part of the custody agreement. When he went to his child's school to try to just see her at the end of the day, this is after years, he was arrested. So Richard, after 6 years of dealing with this, paying for all of her school, private school, and not being able to see his daughter, he ordered a pizza one night, turned on a movie, blew out the pilot light, went to sleep, and never woke up again. He took his own life because he left a note. Part of it was because he couldn't see his child, and his frustration and depression caused by not being able to see his own child. And so I started posting some of this stuff. Again, some of the stories are meant to be somewhat entertaining, but I always try to put some takeaways on different things because there are lessons that men need to learn. Because if like the laws are not in your favor, the laws themselves are against you. So guys talk about different strategies and this and that and the other thing. There is no way to out strategy the law. If once you get married and you sign a marriage contract, because that's all it is, the government is not going to be on your side. So it's going to be your ex, her friends, her family, probably some of your friends are going to go to her side, and the government, and it's going to be all focused on you and trying to defeat you. And so when you look at that contract, I've got a couple of really smart friends that they live with women. They cohabitate. They don't have any children. Well, one of them has a child with her, but they refuse to get actually a marriage license from the state. Part of it is to protect your assets, but also to protect your rights as a father, which, apparently people don't think fathers have any rights at all. For the most part, you don't. And so you've got to be, I would say, any guy who's willing to get married in the Western world, and again, I'm not familiar with how things are in the United Kingdom. I would imagine they're similar as far as how repressive the laws are and how much they are stacked against men in general. And so, I tell guys, if you're willing to get married now, you're just with all the information out there, you're just a sucker. You might as
I'll
well
tell you,
take a
it's
pencil
like
sharpener
there's
and
Coach
grind
Greg
it
Adams
yourself.
for some of those expressions, and there's Private Eye Russ
as well, man. Because think how many guys have you seen go through the meat grinder, the family court, dude, and men lose most of the time. More than 80% of men lose in a family court, and the laws are patriarchal. We're horrible at being patriarch. Terrible. Most of these things, most of these laws hurt us and benefit women. And so when it comes to when people talk about marriage rates being low, people not having children, and all the rest of these things, and then you hear people say things like, "Men just need to just man up and just take it on the chin."
It's interesting because you say one thing, and it's about the government.
Fuck off.
They provide the safety. Therefore, there's no more fear in women, and a lot of women don't even know what it means to be respect for guys. It's not that they don't necessarily respect guys. They don't even know they're not being taught to respect guys. More like the opposite. So now the closest synonym to respect that you have for a guy as a woman is fear. Because there's no fear outside. If she cannot fear the man, it's going to be hard for her to respect him. How can you instigate fears? Many different ways. But the fact that you're not willing to take her shit, and the fact that you're alluding that you could leave, not necessarily verbally, but through your behavior, especially when she invested, that's how you keep the rope. If she feels you cannot leave, she lose respect.
Yeah, and and again, there are a lot of guys. Like I've actually worked on cases where guys that we found out that we uncovered evidence that the
Rewarding bad
wife was
behavior.
cheating, and the guy decided to forgive them. And then guess what happened? She cheated again. But why? Yeah, you failed the ultimate test. You know, that is the ultimate shit test. All right, I'm going to cheat on him, see what he does. He did nothing. Okay, I'm going to cheat on him again. Because why? Like there are no repercussions for that behavior. And so, you know, like now when you know I date different women, I've got a few women I go out with, and each of them knows that they're not the only one. I let one go because she told me she wanted to get pregnant. Okay, yeah, you got to go. I'm not having any more kids. Yeah, you got to go. And but you know she was honest about it. But after that, I was like, you know what? And again, I'm probably one of the most jaded and suspicious people just because of so much stuff I've seen. I'm cursed. You know what I mean? I'm cursed. I just can't trust anybody. And it's just how I'm wired in general anyway. Because I've seen so many people I've seen so many guys get screwed over, man, from false paternity, you know, from paternity fraud, meaning men, you know, have, you know, they're raising a child that's not theirs, that they thought was theirs. False accusations of sexual battery, which, you know, I'm actually working on one of those currently right now. And so if you look at, you know, people say, oh, it's, you know, the occurrence of it is less than 10%. Okay, that might be true. It might not be true. But here's what I would challenge with that. I've worked on more than 10 of these cases. Can you guess? Well,
Legit.
actually, right now this would make 16. So out of 15 cases I've worked that came to conclusion,
Not even the
guess how
one.
many of those accusations were actually accurate or zero? And so, but these were guys who had the financial means to hire an attorney and then hire an investigator. So now imagine if you're accused of that, but you don't have the money to hire an attorney. You have a public defender. Here in this country, public defenders, you might as well throw yourself in front of a train.
Making deals, basically.
The defender works for the prosecutor. That's who they work for. So their job is to ease you into the prison system. That's it. And they work for them. They get paid by the state. And the state is trying to crucify you. And so, you know, and again, the scary part of that is not just the accusation. There's so many things that go along with it. But the scariest part for me, and a nation that is supposed to be a nation of laws, right? The United States of America. We pride ourselves on the rest of that stuff, right? Because we're America, right? Okay, all these cases I've worked on, there was no investigation by law enforcement. Okay, so literally all they did was take another person's word for wrongdoing and arrest a guy. So a guy gets handcuffed in front of his coworkers, his family, and marched into jail because someone said so. Not because there was exactly. And then as I look back and I'm investigating these cases, I'm sitting there like, wait a second, man. Like the first one I worked on, an attorney I've done a bunch of criminal defense work for him. Bunch of them, a lot of homicides. This guy, you know, he's one of these hotshot defense attorneys. Yeah. And he presented this to me, and I was like, look, I mean, this was the first one I ever worked on. And I was like, I'm not really interested in defending a rapist. You know what I mean? He said, okay. He's known me for a long time, so he knew there's some things I'm a little bit squeamish about. You know, and he said, okay, look, he said, check out the case, see what you think. He said, I'll pay you for your time. If you think he's guilty and you don't want to work on it anymore, guess what? I'll pay you for your work and you can just walk away. As I looked into it, I was like, wait a second, this guy didn't do anything. Like he literally didn't do anything wrong. And it turned out that the woman, it was consensual. She hooked up with him because her live-in boyfriend, you know, had gone out of town, and he found out, oh, your girlfriend hooked up with her ex-husband, and it was an ex-husband, and so he said, hey, I heard you did this, get out of my house. Oh, he raped me. Okay, let's go down to the sheriff's station and accuse him of rape. And he called her bluff, and she accused the man of rape, and he got arrested. And if he couldn't afford an attorney, imagine if he couldn't get a good defense attorney, which a lot of guys can't. Defense attorneys are not cheap. And so how many guys are sitting in jail right now or
that's
sitting in
also
prison
another
right now
very key
that
important
didn't
thing
do
about how
anything,
women communicate.
but they, except not have
We
the
think,
wherewithal
guys,
to be able to pay for a defense.
rape is rape. Women will think, can I create a narrative that fits the outcome that I want in order to get myself scot-free, even if it's at the expense of someone? SA was before kinky sex. Domestic violence, maybe before was Fugazi. But what else? Rape is something that just happens to be suitable in order to deflect accountability and responsibility towards one's act. Same way as basically a girl that will feel ashamed that she slept with someone at high school, and just say that he raped them. This is how bad it is, especially in America, where you need. Actually, I have a friend, right? I have a friend who went to LSU, at Louisiana State University, and he went there during when I was at uni in France. One of his friend was sent to jail because after he had sex with one of the girls, he said that he was raped. Craziest shit was that the girl and the guy had breakfast the next day in the morning, so people could see, but no investigation was run whatsoever. Thankfully, that kid that had, like that, well, that was sent in prison, their parents were rich. So he got out of it. But when he got out of it, he told my friend, when I walked into the kitchen, the place where you eat your lunch and everything, the local news had his face on, saying that he was there for rape. And bear in mind, he was a blonde guy, tiny like that, and you're like kind of like the kingpin of the prison, whatever. I said, sit. So he sit. And he tells, so it's like, tell me your story. He tells a story, basically saying to him like he was innocent and everything. And the guy eventually believed him. So he was protected. He was not raped in prison because you would not want to be in that position, especially as a white blonde guy coming from a rich family. I don't know if it was Louisiana Penn or whatever it is. And just see, this can literally, especially if you're a target as a guy because you're rich. You think, it's one thing to basically go into the criminal side of the justice system, but the reality is they do that for the civil side, where they can get compensation for, and that's your sorry.
Yeah, and we see some of these things play out in the news, like the Conor McGregor thing. Now, there's a couple of some opinions I have that Conor McGregor made a lot of mistakes. When you're a wealthy, famous guy like that, especially if you have political aspirations, you have to live a more ordered and stable life. You cannot live a reckless life. Those are the aspirations you have. Even if you don't have political aspirations, if you're wealthy, famous, or even if you're just wealthy, you've got to be careful. You've got to be incredibly careful how you do things. And so, the thing I found most telling with this is that the individual who she also had sex with was found not liable because he's not rich. Conor McGregor, who's rich, was found liable, but the police looked at it and thought that there was not enough to charge him with any sort of criminal activity. And we've seen this play out recently here in the States with some very, very famous people coming out, and it can go either way. But when you're a wealthy, famous person, you've got to be really careful. The problem with that is this: guys that aren't wealthy will engage in very risky behavior socially, and say later on you become, say for instance,
French oligarch, OG stands for
mess
oligarch.
around with,
Yeah, that's right.
some girls you messed around with, and now all of a sudden you become French OG billionaire, oligarch, right? So
Bullshit.
oligarch, right? And an official member of the class, right? And so the bourgeois. And so you're worth billions of dollars, you're famous, and you're sitting on your 300-foot mega yacht, and you get served a summons because some woman you had sex with years ago said, oh, you know what? Even though it was consensual, women can remove consent retroactively. Like we've seen that. This, oh yeah, it was consensual, but I regret doing it, so it's rape now. And so pay me. And so then you can be targeted later on in life, and they can go after you just based on that. And so where's the justice in it? There is no justice in that. And so I tell guys, you got to be so careful, man. You have to be so careful with how you do things, who you do it
Oh
with,
yeah, no.
where you do it, and like like now, and I said this. I was interviewed by
Yeah, I'm still there. Yeah. DocuSign.
yeah, and and so ultimately, she was like, well, why? I said, look, I said, part of that is to set the stage. So this is before anything becomes physical. Hey, look, do you foresee us getting physical in the future? Yes, and I literally reach into my jacket. We're having coffee or whatever. Here you go. I'd like you to review this when you have a chance. When you have a chance to review this, and fill things out. And part of that is because I've seen guys get railroaded and run over, and it's something you got to be so careful, really really careful about, man. And so Conor McGregor, I'm sure he's learned from this particular thing. You can't just go around running around in the streets. Do I think he did anything wrong? He wasn't as cautious as he should have been. Maybe there's a chance this gets overturned, but whether it gets overturned or not on appeal, think about the harm to his reputation. Think of how many endorsement deals,
sponsorship deals,
they're gone. They're gone, and they're probably never going to return, some of them. And so, there's a lot of things you can recover from. Like, you remember Tiger Woods when he got divorced. He was,
yeah,
his wife. People.
Jonathan Majors. He was supposed to be the big Marvel guy.
Yeah.
Boom, done.
Well, Jonathan Majors again. And again, and I'm not putting the responsibility on men. That's not what I'm saying. Is as men, we understand we're going to be. So we need to be careful. So knowing that is the case, and knowing that this is what we're dealing with, we have to order our steps a little bit differently than everybody else does. And so Jonathan Majors, when I watched that video and went over the totality of the situation with him, he made a couple of key mistakes. Number one, if you're texting another chick, don't do that in front of your girlfriend. Number one. Like why? Number two, look at the chick he chose. She was a scraggly heroin addict looking like she looked like she just looked like, I'm sorry, man. Look, you're a star. This chick did what, makeup or something like that? Like, why are you, there's a term, unequally yoked. Why are you messing with this woman in the first place? And then why is she moving in with you? Why is she moving in with you? You shouldn't be living with this chick. You've got a career, so you've got to stay on task, on purpose. And one of the things I shared with my son, something my father passed on to me, was, a decent woman will not necessarily make your life better, but she won't harm your progression. The wrong one will twist you up like a pretzel. He said, so his point was, very few women are actually going to improve your life, but there's a great many of them that can actually wreck your life and take you and run you off the tracks, off the rails. And so what he got harmed with, or what hurt him the most, was this: she hit him. She was chasing him. She was clearly the aggressor. Even the Uber driver or cab driver said that she seemed to be hitting him. They didn't care about that. Here's where when he picked her up and put her back in the cab, and she bumped her head. That's what they got him for. Did they care that she hurt him or hit him? Nope, they didn't care. And then then he's running down the street with these high heel boots, and it's like, my God, just look back, and this skinny, you're Kang, and this skinny, raggedy white girl is chasing you down the street. Just like, come on, brother. It's like, brother, what are you doing, brother? Come on, man. Look, we've all had to deal with women that were behaving violently.
Oh, trust me.
Yeah, and I have. And here's the thing. You've got to be really, really careful how you deal with them. And again, you should have equal protection under the law, but we don't. We're going to be held responsible for their behavior. We know this. I'm not saying it's right, but we understand this is how things are going to go. So you've got to be really, really careful as a man. And it starts with your choice of women you mess with in the first place. I know a guy who married a woman strictly because she had huge boobs. Now, they were natural. They're impressive.
Natural.
They're impressive. And she wasn't fat. She was actually very slender. And so that's even more rare. However, he met her at a strip club. She was a stripper. And so he was shocked that she was banging everybody but him. And it's like, bro, you should have seen this coming from a mile away. Like, okay, you made a bad choice. He made a bad choice. He ended the relationship, and you know, he was just like, yeah, I probably messed up. No, not probably. You messed up, but maybe he messed up royally, about as bad as you could. Like, you marry a stripper, of all things, man.
Well, it could be an escort.
Yeah, well, you know, like, you know, but again,
It could be a porn star.
well, yeah, but we have these things where women have engaged in this work, but they don't divulge this. They don't tell them they used to work here or there, because a lot of these strip clubs, they work on a cash basis, and so there's no tax information. It doesn't show on the IRS that they were they were employed by a strip club. They're working on commission, you know, a cash basis. And so, you know, you have to be able to uncover and peel back those layers of what went on. And again, we talked about before about having the ability to make an informed decision. Any man should want to be able to make an informed decision, but it has to begin with being more purposeful. If you're choosing someone as a long-term mate, or the mother of your child, men are not very purposeful. Women are a lot more purposeful. They do a lot more research. And it might seem haphazard. It might seem like they just fell in love with you, but in reality, they made a choice. You know, how many women have gotten pregnant by someone else but married someone completely different? Because the guy they got pregnant by wasn't the guy who was the long-term choice.
And guess what? So here's this out, right? There was this tweet that went viral because it was an exchange between me and a woman based in the States, right? And she was just going into the dating market, 40 years old, very well established, etc., etc. Then you had the girls group chat. The woman went and basically checked his address, checked how much the properties were worth. They were shitting on that girl I was speaking with because he only took her on a coffee date the first day. No establishment over 40 does that, you know. And then, you know, but the guy was vetting her. Those girls think they can vet guys that are established, but those guys are vetting them girls. And it's like, and two of them were real estate people. I mean, I said that basically if you're a real estate agent at 40s because you failed as a whore. So, you know, no, seriously.
You know, you're right, bro. You're right, brother.
Like, and it's like the crabs in the bucket. They were giving bad advice after bad advice after bad advice. And it's like, yeah, well, why do you think you're 40 plus and you still not back the guys? Because you think you run the show, but those guys run the show because they have the money, they have the means, and if you're lucky, to actually have gone through the personal screening from his dating, guess what's going to happen? He's going to hire a guy like you because he cannot do all the screening. You can. So it's like they think they can basically just, it's like a car. You know, like you have the odometer on the car. Women think that they just can put it at zero. There's no past. Happy days. No fucking past, you know? No, there is a past. There is a past. And it's like, and the bill is due. You know, but the thing is, the problem is, sorry, the guys will go and jump with a woman because, oh my God, this woman actually gave me a bit more attention, more than every other woman in the past, because I never really had that. So because she gave me that, then she must like me. No, not necessarily, because most of the time they are looking for a right mark. And you may fall well within that thing. And then afterwards, once you basically extract all the resources that you had, then she'll be looking for a severance package because there's nothing else you can provide because you didn't provide attraction. You provided money or support or financial infrastructure, all of that. Okay? And and that's how they get fucked because they don't know where those girls are coming from. So it's very important to understand, okay, well, is she really liking me for me, or is she just liking me for basically my wallet? And if she likes you for your wallet, then guess what? It's not gonna have a happy ending unless she has this type of duty and sense of structure within her life. Because you don't end up in a situation like, and generally, what you're talking about earlier about those women that are kind of like, oh, I'm independent, I'm this, I'm that. Like there was a text exchange that I exchanged, I was like, this girl, right? Because a lot of them are distracted after 30. Like, guess what? Like they're just traveling here, they're traveling there. Girl travel from Italy, man. Like, 4 days. I was like, and I was like, for me, I'm a bit, I like to have a little bit of banter. I was like, from Italy, because we just started chatting on the apps. Then we switched to WhatsApp. There was a good back from Italy, and it's like, oh, you keeping tabs? And I said, yeah, indeed. I wish I didn't, because you've been a bad girl. Something like, because I preach the false to get to the truth. That's a key thing, guys. Preach the false to get to the truth. It's like, well, she said something along those lines. No, I haven't been a bad girl. So now starts the gaslighting. So I keep on doubling down, and then she says, "How do I gaslight?" And then afterwards, like, well, first of all, I don't owe you anything. I owe nothing to anyone. Well, calm down. It's like, sorry, but based on my ex, who was a narcissistic person before, I'm very triggered by this, and I'm just like, well, here we go. The more a woman is defensive, the more she has something to hide, and the more you're on the right track, the more you smell the right thing. And guess what? She traveled alone.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue to another one. She's women who are denying, anybody in general who denies something they haven't been accused of. If they're talking about how they would never do this, would never do that, but you haven't made an accusation. Again, we talk about the guilty heart seeks to unburden itself. People will self-snitch all the time. And part of that is most people are taught to be truthful and honest. We have to override that with years of training and conditioning, but even so, the truth will come out. And if you understand the clues and what to look for, you can start to see the signs of deception. And one big one is, oh, I would never do that. I wouldn't do something. I'm not that type of girl. No, you know what? Usually when I hear I'm not that type of girl, they are definitely that type of girl.
Oh, no. Actually, I had a tweet that went viral that said, all right, so 5 things that women say, but what they actually really mean. It's about filling the gaps. First thing is, I don't do that anymore. All right?
I think I saw that post, yes.
I don't do that anymore. Then it's, what was it afterward? It was, I'm not that type of girl. With you, / right now.
Oh.
Right? I need space for someone else. Then what was the other thing? He's just a friend with benefits. It never stops. And when they self-snitch, what they do is, like, when they are not prompted into saying something, say for example, because they suspect you to basically believe something about something, they'll front load it, right? And it's like they'll say something like, I've had guy friends in the past, but I've never done anything with them. I'm like, oh, I didn't ask you anything. But tell me, basically, you feel guilty about that shit, so therefore you're front loading it, and you expect me to believe it, whereas you're already feeling defensiveness because you are fully conscious of what you did, and you're not living well within yourself to actually accept it, right? And you expect me, of all people, to believe you? Fuck off. Sorry, I'm sorry. So, that's self-snitch.
And like, okay, guys, women who want to go on a break. This is another red flag. They're not going on a break. They're not going on a break because they want to meditate and do yoga and read a bunch of self-help books and work on themselves. They want to go on a break so they have a built-in excuse for being splashed with the DNA of a dozen men while you're on that break.
The 12 work of Hercules.
Yeah, and so yeah, exactly. So when they're ready to get back together with you, they usually want to get back together with you when their vagina has been stretched to the size of the Lincoln Tunnel by having everybody in there, and now you're getting the leftovers. You're getting what Chad, Tyrone, Raj, Guillermo,
Chan.
Rashid. I actually had a buddy in the Middle East, Muslim brother. From the Middle East, when I lived in the Middle East for a lot of years. Dude, his name was actually Rashid, and it's funny. I actually, a lot of my Muslim friends gave me a Muslim name. I lived in the Middle East for years. Middle East and North Africa. They used to call me Saad.
Saad.
Which means happy. And they said you're always happy because I always had a bunch of flight attendants with me.
Hey, ready to be happy.
Dude, I was living in Bahrain for a while, and the airline there, I don't know if it's still around, was Gulf Airlines, and there was always a bunch of Western European women that were the flight attendants. And so the first time I went up going to a private club, I had this way of meeting a lot of wealthy, rich people, and they just wanted me to hang out with them. So I got a membership to this private club. Other servicemen couldn't. I was in the service at the time. Other servicemen couldn't go there, and I showed up there. I'm dressed. At the time, I had a double-breasted suit, nice tie. I had a Davidoff tie. You know what I mean, looking sharp. And it was karaoke night, and I did the "Simply Irresistible" Robert Palmer song with 5 blonde Dutch women on either two on two, two and three on the other side, and all the Muslim homies were like, "Wait a second, who's this? Where'd this guy come from?" And when people find out, like, you're in the military, yep, yep, and so, but I wound up meeting so many good friends over there, and still to this day, some of these guys are friends of mine from all over the Middle East, and I'm not Muslim, but I'm Christian, and I tell people I'm not a very good one.
Hey, you own it.
By most definitions, I'm not a very good one. I did work for a while as head of security for a mega church, and I can tell you stories for days about some of the stuff that went on in that church, man. But over there, so they gave me the nickname Saad, and
Yeah.
and I had a bunch of adventures in the Middle East and North Africa, and made a lot of good friends over there, and so, but I learned a lot about the way women behave, watching them behave around super wealthy people. And so, I talked about how that one married woman and married man accepted a lot of money for this guy's wife to spend time with our wealthy client. Now, this guy was known for his dad was super wealthy, Kuwaiti guy, Kuwait, a lot of money in Kuwait. Ton of money in Kuwait, man. But he was always getting in trouble. And so his dad, to keep him out of trouble, bought him a beach resort in one of the other countries just to keep him out of trouble. Literally built him a beach resort to run, to stay out of trouble.
Don't go to prison.
Yeah, look, and he he liked the girls, man. He liked the girls like we all do. And he just liked this one and just offered her money. But that was the first time he did this. But this woman, married woman, on vacation with her husband, accepted money. The husband split the money with her, but he left her after that, like anybody would. Not really, but could you look at your wife the same way if she was willing to? Your wife now, not a girlfriend or an acquaintance, but your wife. Could you look at her the same way after doing this? In most cases, probably not, right? And so I would see him just make offers to women constantly, like whether they're married or not, and women would be willing to do the most depraved things just for money, And so it wasn't about what type of girl they were; it was about how much money.
What's your price tag?
Yeah. And he would always just share with me. He said, "Look, every woman has a price." He said every single one of them has a price, and you'd see him mess with women that were, you would think, very high class, wealthy women from extremely prominent families, and they're willing to sell. They're willing to sell it, and so exactly. So I learned a lot watching that, just watching and the rest of them. I worked for a couple of really some billionaires. Whenever I hear stories, I lived in Hollywood for a while as well too. Did some Hollywood, in Hollywood. But so when you hear about actors and they cheat on their wife, right? And people get really judgmental. All right. So one of my roommates, and I'll tell a story about him one of these days, but he was a B-list actor. He was not a prominent actor. He did some, a lot of voiceover work. He did some soap opera work, a lot of Spanish soaps. He was a Latino guy. He was literally Guillermo, like we talk about, right? And so the way I would see women throw themselves at this guy, like he wasn't an A-lister, he was a B-lister in Hollywood, but like I remember one time he had his old Buick convertible that he had restored, nice car, beautiful. I'm talking about beautiful, perfectly restored, the white wall tires, the really really shitty bias ply white wall tires that didn't really have much grip.
Yeah.
And we're driving somewhere one day. Women would throw their business cards into his car at traffic lights. I'm not even exaggerating, man. We were roommates for a while. He would come home from some of these Hollywood parties with 5, 6 girls, and just send one to my room. I'm a working guy, and so I'm working, I'm doing my thing. So like it just became regular where like a woman would they just get naked and crawl in the bed with me, and I turn on the lights and check him out to make sure he wasn't slipping an unattractive fat chick in. Just to make sure.
Master Splinter, watch out! Because hey, watch out, guys. I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you a story. It's like what? This girl, IG baddie. I was like, yeah. There we go. There we go. Get the deeds done. Next day she wakes up, blah blah blah. Goes to the shower, take the makeup off. It's like that Metal Gear Solid sound. When you get busted on Metal Gear Solid. I was like, what? I was like, I didn't sign up for this shit. Anyway, catfish massive. Bear in mind, that girl showed me messages of guys that wanted to have her as a sugar baby, quoting between 5K to 20K a month. Anyway, guess what? She basically found like a guy. The guy just like your average stock factory guy, nothing major, right? And he has no fucking clue. Like, you know what? Like some of those girls you find and you think this, that, right? Like you wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised, especially if they're above a certain level of looks, that they have a sugar baby past. Like between the OnlyFans. So there was OnlyFans, Sugar Babies, what else? One X porn as a star. I think she still does porn. Yeah,
Yeah, and so he would do this. So women would just throw themselves at this guy. Like, okay, I'll give you a good example how shallow some of these women were. So I would hang out with these buddies of mine. I had a bunch of buddies that were B-list actors. One or two did their own series for a little bit. One guy was on a soap opera for like more than 20 years, and so well-established guys, but they're not, they're not like Denzel Washington or Brad Pitt or George.
Yeah.
They're not. And so we go to a bar. It was in Hollywood, California, that was known for B-list actors hanging out. I follow me into the men's room because they thought I might have been an actor, proving themselves to me. And so when you see these guys, they get caught cheating on their wife or whatever. You have to understand that they get women thrown at them like it's
nonstop.
It's hard to explain. But I've seen it. It's hard to explain how, like, you imagine wave after wave of attractive women throwing themselves after you, offering you immediate access to everything they have all day, every day. I don't care how good of a guy you are. I don't care if you're Kwai Chang Caine from Kung Fu or Shaolin monk. I don't care who you are. You're going to break at some point.
Yeah.
You have to.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing as a girl's trip. It's like you get yourself thrown sausage all the time. At one point, one sausage will come in your mouth, even though you have to breathe. You can't do it anyway.
Yeah.
Just.
And look, and okay, girls trips, girls night out, all these different things. The last minute hookup or the last minute meeting with an ex-boyfriend. Oh, my ex-boyfriend's in town, or my college boyfriend's in town. He invited me to lunch. Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
He's not inviting her to lunch. He's inviting her back to his hotel. They might have lunch at his hotel right before they go up to his room. Look, the problem with the exes that women, because some of these exes, they're going to be guys. That's the guy they really wanted. That's the guy they wish they had been with, but they couldn't get that guy. They didn't have access to him. Things didn't work out. When he becomes available, they will jump at the time. That guy will always have access to her body, no matter what her status is, marriage, or long-term significant other, or whatever it might be. He will always have access, not just access. Give him access because you don't have access. And he'll get a bigger menu. Like his menu will be where you might get 2 or 3 items. He's going to have an open menu to like a buffet. He can get whatever
Hey, look, if you only had access to the front door, you may have access to the back door.
Well, he probably does. And so she's going to do whatever she can to please this guy that she wished she had gotten with instead of you. And so, and again, men have to be really, really careful. You have to vet and you have to understand the information. And today is the best time to do it. You know why? Because it's so much more difficult. Years ago, decades ago, a woman with a checkered past, they call it, right? Or a scarlet woman, let's call it, right? She was a scarlet woman. Guess what she had to, guess what she could do? She could move to a different state, move to a different town. Nobody knew her. Guess what? Clean slate. Over. They can't really do that, or at least in most cases, they can't really do that nowadays. And so there are so many ways to peel back the digital footprint that women have left behind. And some of the guys I have working for me, these are guys that used to work for some of the 3-letter agencies. And so their job is to find information. Like that was their job. And I've got a couple of really good guys that are really, really good at the digital footprint or digital pattern of life, I guess we call it. And we put together the due diligence report. And we actually, I actually offer people a score. Like, this is a low risk person. If you're thinking about engaging in long-term relationship or marriage, this is a low risk individual. Like, nobody has zero risk. There's no such thing as a zero risk woman because they're women. And then we also offer scores like, look, this is an extremely high risk individual. Your chances of this person being honest and truthful and faithful are slim and none. And Slim just left town. You know what I mean?
Hey man, you know what? Actually, I should send you a few of the girls that I've been with. Maybe I want to see if I break the record on the. Because for me, I like to collect red flags. It's almost like a fucking.
Look, I've actually met women that, okay, I'll give you a funny dating app story. Met a woman on an app. When I first split with my ex, I went on a rampage with women, like a rampage with a bunch, because the dating apps are just the easiest. They're not even for dating, they're for hooking up. Let's be honest. And so I met a woman, we had coffee. I always meet women for coffee. I don't meet anybody the first date for dinner. Why? Because I don't want to be stuck sitting across from someone if I don't like them. Women will lie. They'll put fake pictures up. If you show up, like, I've had women show up 100 pounds, 120 pounds heavier than their pictures. And so I'm just get up and walk out. Like, I'm out. But if you're at dinner, it's much more difficult. It's much more awkward and clunky to just get up and leave. But also too, I want to test and gauge their personality without with the absence of any alcohol or anything like that. Because I just want to see how they behave. But I met a woman. We hooked up the first date. It wasn't even a hookup. It was something she did for me in the parking lot. Literally, a year and a half later, I see her profile again, contact her. We meet again. She didn't remember meeting me. She did the same thing. She did the same thing in the parking lot again. And I said to her, I said, wow. I said, we did the same thing before, but at different Starbucks. And she looked and she was like, oh my God. Oh my God, I remember now. Yeah. I said, don't worry about it. I just told her, I said, your skills have improved significantly since that time. You've done, obviously, whatever practice you had, it was worth it. But that's how many, like, women spend a long time on dating apps. Man, look, what guys have to understand, for every woman that will swipe on my profile, woman, she's getting 100. And these women are not sifting through every dude. They're taking what they can get and they're going out with multiple dudes and they're hooking up with a lot of dudes. These apps are not dating apps. They're hookup apps. And so if you got a woman that's been on a dating app for a very long time, that's a huge red flag. Women that have social media, like, we've found where women, they'll have alternative social media accounts. So in one case, we had and some I've seen, but women will have a dating app, not a dating, but a social media accounts that are husbands connected to everything. She'll have a parallel set of accounts that don't necessarily have her regular pictures that her husband doesn't have access to, and this is what she's using for extracurricular activity. You know why? Because if you add a new friend and he looks like, if a woman adds a new friend and a husband's going through her page and he looks like it's Chad, Tyrone, Guillermo, Chad, Rashid, watch out now for that motherfucker Rashid. Watch out for Rashid. Rashid was up to no good, man. Like, dude, this dude got so many women. He was a smooth dude. He was a smooth dude. He had game, and he was wealthy as hell. And so women just would throw themselves at him. And he was literally the Middle Eastern Mr. Steal Your Girl. that was. And so you got to watch out for these guys. If you see this guy friend your wife, that should raise a red flag. Like, hey, wait a second. Why is
she entertaining it?
Yeah, what's going on here? And so they'll have alternative accounts. We found women that weren't using their regular cell phones. They had burner phones. So they had a whole different phone they would use for their interactions, social media, text messages, whatever, phone calls, emails, everything. And so they're very, very slick. They're very, very sharp about how to keep things hidden away. And so for men, you got to be super, super careful. There are certain industries, if a woman works with a bunch of salesmen, one of those dudes is going to talk her into giving up the cookies. They are. It's not if, it's when. If it's a sales organization, she's going to be giving up the cookies.
I know. I was in sales. I saw that firsthand.
There you go. And so let me ask you this, and this has just been my thing. I did sales for a little bit as well too. Would you say that the same skills you need to close a sale are the same skills that you would need to meet a woman and convince her to close the sale back at your hotel room?
Yeah, 100%. Like the thing is, the concepts are the same. Line, qualification, closing, open, premise. Like everything. It's like, okay, like objection handling. Boom, 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 boom. And it's like controlling the sale. It's like like there's it's you're a man, and that's the whole thing about game. You, the man, start as a seller in the frame, right? And the shift is for you to shift from the seller to the buyer frame, where the woman, at first, you kind of like sell yourself to the woman, get her invested in the sale process, and then control all the investment, because once she's invested, you control her, type of stuff. Right. So, but yeah, no, I've seen women that were not necessarily married, or on the way of getting married, on the sales kickoff, getting on with one of the local salesmen. That's the reality. It's sad when you see this. And also there's something that you said that I want to jump on, which was social media and dating apps, right? Like, yeah, especially in America, from the feedback I'm hearing, it's pretty much just hook up. Like, it's just hook up. Social media, it's like the problem with social media, outside of just opening yourself as a marketing platform for girls who literally market themselves covertly, because technically it's like, no, I'm not on a dating app. They're out there, right? Okay, so basically you allow other people, strangers, to actually DM you, and you can have your profile on private. You'd be surprised by the amount of fucking DMs those girls get on private. I've seen that firsthand as well. So you find and even how do I say? It's quite funny because actually I just posted one of my latest Bumble chat. I don't know if you ever saw my Bumble chats, but they're quite funny in general. And this one was happy, going straight back to mine, and she was like, "But there's a long queue. So, you'll have to wait." I said, "Oh, I'm sure there is a long queue." And then, and then this, the meme picture where you have like all the guys waiting to basically fuck her, or the girl on the couch, and the guys with the flower. I said, "Oh, I'm sure there's a long queue." And then I basically sent that picture. "You're narcissistic." No. And then she
look, they're hardwired to be deceptive from a very early age. And again, that's not me hating them. It's just me noticing and observing the behavior pattern. And so as men, we've got to, men need to catch up. Because again, most men are way, like you hear about dudes, like I hear these stories about guys who are what they call the, incel and all the rest of this stuff. I can't imagine, how difficult that has to be if you're going through life and you can't, I don't understand how that happens.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because I have a good buddy, his son, he had a hard time meeting women, right? And so guess what he did? He took him on a trip to a foreign country. I won't say which one, but he took him to a brothel and gave him a fistful of hundreds. Here, have fun. And again, I'm not saying you should or shouldn't, but this was just a dad trying to help his son. And so like when one of the things I did with my son from a very early age when he was younger was didn't tell him to, hey, go sleep with this girl or whatever. Look, if you see a girl you think is pretty, walk up to her, say hi, talk to her. Why? Because for some young men, one of the most frightening things they can do is talk to a pretty girl or talk to any girl that they're attracted to. And so for him, it took away that fear. And so now today, like he has he has his pick of young women, you know what I mean? And so, because for him, it's not a big deal. And so people accuse me of sexualizing my son. I wasn't sexualizing my son, but it's so funny because if I had put him as a boy into a set of high heels, fishnet stockings, and a mini skirt, and cut off his junk, they would have talked about how brave I was. You know what I mean?
No, wait,
You know what I
hold on.
mean?
Isn't that what's the name of Dwayne Johnson? No, Dwayne Wade wife.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Well, what's her name?
I don't.
Gabrielle
Real
Union.
Union.
Gabrielle Union, yeah? Look at the bullshit. And then basically they say, like I saw a video of her saying, girls, you're 30, you still got your full life ahead of you. I'm like, bitch, you're fucking 50 plus. Like, you're just fucking, like, you're just washed out. Just shut the fuck up. Don't mislead all those young women. It's on the one hand, you have like this woman that tells them you have all the time in the world, and then they end up on my Bumble chat as leftovers, right? Where I fucking troll the shit out of them. And then on the other hand, it's like you make your son, you make your son not be a son. It's and one of the key things that I find also that is very problematic with young guys on social media, and that's not and because I didn't have to worry about that myself because there was not so much social media when I was young. That got me to actually get out there. Yeah, I got rejection, right? But you know what? Rejection is the best way for you to establish yourself because you establish yourself by not knowing who you are, but by knowing what you're not. And then what enables you, it actually helps you create that identity, that frame where you're like, I may not be doing things this way or that way, but it doesn't matter as long as it's aligned with me and the way I view the world and the way I view myself. And those guys basically are getting fed so many different information that are contradicting oneself, and they don't expose themselves. And a lot of incels or a lot of people, as part of one part of the black pill, they will start creating those, even though there's some valid information here and there, they'll create this worldview that is not even based upon any empirical exposure, and then they'll just live in some type of alternate reality, which is not even one of their own making, and they will live that life according to those beliefs, a bit like a church, right? You literally segment yourself out from the real world by just following or believing stuff that generally are reinforcing your own failures that you're not willing to address. So for you as a young guy, you need to get out there and basically expose yourself. I'm not saying become a baby, but you have to expose yourself like what you did with your son, because this is what got me most of my information. It was not my parents teaching me this. It was not my friend teaching me this. It was not girls teaching me this. It was the failures that I've gone through, the bullshit that I know now. And that's how I know how to communicate. I communicate with girls not even my own fucking language. I know how to manage the language of fucking English better than they do, and I know how to run a conversation, run a relationship, run everything based upon that exposure, not over some guy that you listen or that you've read on Twitter. There's some good people out there, but if you do not do the stuff and the work on your own on the outside, you're fooling yourself.
Yeah, and like one of the things I advise guys to do is stop taking advice from women.
Oof.
Women give the worst advice. They give each other horrible advice. They give men even worse advice. Stop listening to women. It's like there was a post on X the other day about some women talking about if you want to impress your date, pay for her something or another. You want to impress a woman at a bar, pay for her tab. And I'm sitting there like that. It's a bunch of broke women telling guys how to open their wallets with them. That's all it is. And it's like, guys, stop listening. I'll give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the few cold days here in Florida, right? And so it was like 40 degrees. I have a 3/4 length black leather coat.
Yeah.
Right. I don't get to wear it often here because it's just too hot most of the time. So I took the advantage and said, okay, it's cold today. I wore a black turtleneck, black slacks, some black loafers, my black coat. I was looking like Shaft.
The 97 exploitation movie, right? With Samuel L. Jackson.
That day, I got 3 numbers. Walgreens, like the first place I went to Walgreens. Cute blonde woman was just checking me out, and the register was broken, so I had to go to the photo section. She followed me over there, and I just looked at her and I said, "You have a mischievous look to you. You up to something? You up to something? You up to no good?" And we just started joking, and I left. I didn't ask for her phone number. I went to the parking lot, and I was on a business call, and she walked up and waited until I was done, and we exchanged phone numbers. Then later, I was meeting my son for lunch. And so before he got there, I was on another call. I like to pace when I'm on the phone. I like to stand up when I'm on the phone, and I was outside my car, and this woman on the other side of the parking lot drove up to me. I got her phone number. Then later on, I went, I went to Publix just to pick up some groceries for dinner. Got another woman's phone number. And what I tell guys is this: be who you are. Confidence goes a long way, but stop chasing these chicks. Don't chase. I'm not chasing anybody. I'm sure you do the same thing. Let them come to you.
Yeah.
Let them come
Just
to you.
market yourself well.
And you know
what you did with your.
Well, you know, it's a shift in the power dynamic. If I'm trying to chase her, then I've already given up any sort of status immediately. And so part of that is don't care what the outcome is. And I literally don't care if a woman wants to hang out with me or likes me or doesn't like me, because I've got you know, a few women that I go out with now. You know what I mean? And so you know, and like you yourself, you're working from a position of power. Put yourself in a position of power.
Exactly.
And they'll come.
What I'm showing with my Bumble chats is I could get on dates with them. But if it's not on my terms, the way I want to do it, I'm not employing. Look, it's cool. You don't have to agree with my shit, but if you don't, then I'm not interested. Done. And if guys have that backbone and have that ability to have abundance is not having so many girls. Abundance is being fine with not having any, because then you don't actually go and chase in order for you to get some more. You can't understand that until you basically get that. The outcome independence that you're telling is very important. The fact that you don't care is the moment that you don't care, the moment that you actually allow yourself to be who you are, being assertive, don't explain yourself, and just be who you are, and just lay it out like that. And the right people will come to you, because there's those people that either invite you, or the people that are willing to basically bend to your role because they like you enough.
Do me a favor, go back. You just dropped a nugget of gold there about abundance.
Yeah.
How did you?
So abundance is not about having all those girls around you, because you're still relying upon the external factors of girls. So imagine, right? You're in a relationship. You just have one girl. What does it do? You're fucked, because you use girls as a means to survive, not just as a means as just is. In the sense that it's the moment that you don't rely on girls that is true abundance, because then whenever you don't have one, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing with money. Abundance in money is not so much about all the stuff that you can buy, but it's all the stuff that you can say no to.
See, that's what I'm talking about, man. You put out a lot of gold on a regular basis, and you put out so much of it. People probably take for granted some of the gold nuggets you put out. That was a really good one. I've never heard anybody articulate it this way, and it makes a lot of sense. And so it's like I tell guys, I'm like, look, man, stop. Like I have a neighbor, and this guy makes great money, but he was kind of the stereotypical, kind of skinny nerd,
Yeah.
And so I met him a few years ago when I bought this place here after I separated from my ex, and he would see different girls coming to my place, women coming to my place regularly, and he'd be like, like I was walking my dogs one day, and I was smoking a cigar, and he was like, hey, and we just struck up a conversation. He was like, how do you get so many girls? I said, I get so many girls by not trying to get girls. I said, here's what I do, man. I work on my stuff. I lift weights, I swing kettlebells, I exercise, I take care of myself. I said, but when everybody else is like oogling and checking out the really hot girl that might be around, I ignore them completely. I said, you will get further. I said, you have to improve yourself, obviously, not for the sake of getting women, but just for the sake of improving yourself.
Exactly.
Making yourself the version you can be of yourself. Not for girls, not for the sake of girls. They're an extra. They're like having a sandwich and you put some ketchup or some mustard or some onions, whatever. They're an extra. Yeah, they're like fries on the side or whatever. I said, but you can't just be focused on that. I said, the more you focused on trying to get girls, the fewer girls you're going to get. And so it was like a years long thing with him. He joined the gym, started exercising, started taking care of himself. And then, I told him the type of diet that he needed to be on, because, people don't realize your diet plays, this obviously, but a lot of guys don't realize, you can exercise all you want. If you're not eating properly, it doesn't matter what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I told him, I said, look, but I kept having to tell him, stop focusing on girls. As if you stop focusing on girls, you'll do better. And so So to give him an example, him and I went out to a private social club here in Central Florida. The owner of the club, I know, I can't afford to join this place. It's exorbitantly expensive. I went to a poetry club, but it's a golf club, and they do business a lot, and so they wouldn't use that to me. And cool. This one actually work for the guys to put as a live product membership, right? And so we go to this place that's always player. Why? Because beautiful women who want to land a wealthy guy, they will invest and put themselves in the space where wealthy men today. Just like the lion, yeah, it's like the lion knows the antelope has to go to the watering hole at least once a day. Women came to the spaces as men, but they're more subtle about it. But they'll put themselves in places. And so we walk in this place, and we're both well shot and everything. And 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 so I just showed him. I said, look, I walk in, woman catches my eye, I can completely. That's not what she walks up and offers my address. I said, if I taken her first cue and walked over to her, then guess what? I'm giving up that power dynamic, and I'm putting that position this time. That in that small little space and time to stop worrying about what people think and in your own state. Once you get to that state, man, it's almost like a superpower. Like you said, started to just walk away and say, fuck off, bye, or whatever. I don't want any, or I don't need any. It's a superpower. It's a superpower that.
And you know what we were talking beforehand is you're saying. Oh, sorry, I think there's a bit of echo. All right. You know how some people can call you all cool Tom, cool or whatever. You got comfortable with that. So from that moment on, you're comfortable with that. You don't need to worry about so much whatever some girls or some guys will think of you. It's the same thing.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, sales. Let's go back to the sales comparison. If you're desperate as a salesman, you're not going to sell anything. You're not going to sell a thing if you are desperate, because people will catch up. People will subconsciously pick up on that desperation. And here's what it will trigger in their head. This guy's desperate to make a sale because he's not a very good salesman. That means he doesn't really believe in his product, or he's not very good at what he does, so I don't want to do business with him. And it's going to be that much.
Or the product's so shit that nobody's buying it, therefore I should not buy it because other people are not buying it.
And so, and again, you can it's the same comparison to when you're dealing with women. Like, look, man, if you act desperate, just like one of my old sales trainers used to say, the best time to make a sale is after you just made one.
You got the momentum.
If once you get that hot salesman that's just doing this thing and just keeps going while everybody else might be struggling, there you go. And that's what you want to do. I said, but you don't get that by having just one. One is none, as we say. One is none and two is one. And so, when guys go forward into this world, it's a very inhospitable world for men in general. And so, men have to be more careful, have to be smarter. They have to be more cognizant of some of these red flags. And there's a lot of red flags. They have to be cognizant of these red flags. They've got to vet women from the front end. You have to do your research. Sometimes you can do enough. If you grew up with a woman, okay, you might know her from childhood to adulthood. And in some cases, you might know everything, but she still might have hidden secrets. And again, it doesn't mean she's a criminal or anything like that, but they might be things that be out of line with your morals and what you want from a long-term partner. And again, we want to be able to make an informed decision. And so that's what we try to offer men. And so, there are times when men will get a little bit impatient. They'll be like, all right, well, where's my research? Okay, well, look, if I do research and I'm not satisfied with it, I'll have one of my other guys double check it and do his own research. You know what I mean? And then if I'm still not satisfied, I'll have someone else, another one of my guys, we'll triple check our work, and then we'll look again, because we know how important this information is to the men we're supplying this information to. This is one of the most important and most life-changing decisions you can ever make. This is one of the biggest financial decisions you can ever make in your entire life, is who you sign a marriage contract with. God help you if you don't do any research and do your due diligence in the beginning. And so for us, we have an ethical responsibility to make sure the information we give the guys that trust us with their future, They're trusting us with their future children, their peace of mind, their homes, their money. All these different things are going to hinge on this decision. And so, I take it as a personal challenge. Like, look, okay, if a guy calls or emails and says, look, I need this because I'm thinking about marrying this person. Can you help me? Yes, we can. And again, that's why we look so many times in that doctor's. I look over and over and over again just because I've never seen anybody this clean. You know what I mean? But she actually is clean. That does happen. Now there are some cultural. Well, the culture she comes from plays a large part in her background being as clean as it is. And obviously, without going into details or whatever else, but there are some cultures that are very stringent and very restrictive as far as your behavior goes. And so you're just not able to, again, we talk about consequences. If you come from a place where if your behavior is outside the bounds of what they consider acceptable, depending on religion and culture or whatever it might be, it could be a life-changing experience. You could literally be in trouble, and like in serious jeopardy of your life. And so she comes from one of those backgrounds. And so, even then we still looked, but her background is, like she was a very focused young woman, with a very, very focused and purposeful life. And so I was like, I told him your preliminary, I said, look, the two of you together are going to create superior children. You have superpowered kids just because he's very disciplined and very purposeful in his life. And he's treating this like a business decision, which is, I'm not the only one to say this before, but men need to hear this over and over again. This is a business decision. This is not about love. You know what I mean? This
especially
is about
women to see that as business. So do the same unless you want to get.
Your good friend, Coach Greg Adams, said, men are in love, women are in business. Right? It was a while ago. I've listened to some of his stuff. He's actually a very smart guy, very interesting way of presenting things. Some of the things I'm going to start doing in the future is more like investigative reports on going over false accusations in the news and giving analysis of how men could have avoided some of these things. I'm also going to start going over some of the things like some of the companies that conspire to create products that are literally spurglary products. I'm working on one right now. And these companies produce a product that is designed to take your free will about choosing who to impregnate or not. So for the price of between $50 and $200, a woman steals your and puts you on the hook for child support for the next 18 years. Legal. And so, another thing I went over, I did a speech one time. I need to turn it into a video about how little boys being sperm jacked. Okay, you doing some bad things, then okay, you just roll into it. Yeah, roll.
Sorry for all the guys like me that like to shoot up the club.
Sorry.
Mac 10.
And so, like people ask me, okay, what did you do? When I was, before I got married, I would wear protection and I would pull out because I was so paranoid. Even before I became an investigator, I was paranoid about.
That's called double verification.
Yeah, and so what I tell guys is, look, wear your stuff, control your stuff. Never let a woman supply your protection. Never ever let a woman supply your protection. Do they get sabotaged? Yes, they do. I actually keep in my bedroom protection not in my safe, because the safe is downstairs and the bedroom's upstairs. But I keep them in a hard locked box with a combination lock.
You're a better man than me.
But look, I'm so, like I said, I'm cursed. I don't trust. Like if a woman comes over, very rarely do.
Well, you're.
But even then, you wear your stuff. Don't let her dispose of it. Never throw it in a trash can. Because number one, that's nasty. You're throwing your used junk in a trash can. It's nasty, first of all. Yeah, yuck. But either put some substance in it that's going to destroy the DNA so it can no longer produce,
Did you put like some hot sauce? I was gonna talk to you about this one.
And then she tried to sperm jack him. She emptied it into herself. Again, they make equipment designed to do this and make it easier for them. And then she got burned. But what people don't realize is that he actually had to pay her a settlement out of court. He had to pay her some money out of court for sabotaging the DNA because, look, women are not going to be held responsible. That's the ultimate message is this to men. You are going to be held responsible. They will not be held responsible. I'm not saying it's right. I think it's completely wrong. I said, but we have to deal with the reality, not with life as we wish it would be, but as it actually is. And we know that we're going to be held responsible. They will not. So we have to take active countermeasures to make sure to mitigate those circumstances so we don't wind up being the victim of someone, what they call forced paternity. And so then after you put whatever substance, wrap it in some toilet paper, flush it, flush again, make sure it's gone. Don't let them control that. Don't let them sabotage it. Be very, very careful. Another way they sabotage guys is with the head fake. Okay, so one fake is head fake, and this is a tactic that we discussed. Women do these things, and they have masterminds and committees. I mean, like the only thing they don't have is a training manual. You know what I mean? I'm sure that's going to come. There's probably a PDF somewhere about how to sperm trap a guy, and so. A woman will say, I can't get pregnant. I've got some sort of medical condition. I can't get pregnant. So you can just go and just do what you want. That's false in many cases. How many women have said they couldn't get pregnant? Oh, my goodness, it's a miracle, right? I got pregnant. It wasn't a miracle. The next one is, oh, I'm already pregnant. You can do what you want. I got a positive pregnancy test. So they sell positive pregnancy tests results. You know that? You can buy one. They call it a prank. But what they'll do is they'll show you that test and like, look, I'm already pregnant. I know it's yours, so you don't have to use condoms anymore. That's the head fake. Then you really throw one in there. You know what I mean? And put some baby batter in the oven, and there you go. Then you're done. And so when I think of it, how many men have been? There's no way to quantify how many men have been the victim of sperm jacking. There's no way you can quantify it. There's no way you like the numbers are incalculable. And a lot of it is because guys just got to be.
And that's what we are here. You have to. We're here to tell them that the background stuff, the dark side shit, And but yeah.
One of the things I would say about that as well too is that's my main purpose is trying to educate guys, man. And I know you do the same thing and you do a great job. Again, I don't know how you come up with so many topics and talking to you. Obviously, you have a superior intellect, and so like we talked about this before. Someone tried to accuse me of saying I was using GPT for and I'm sitting there like, and one guy in particular. The guy's a published author, written 5 books. And so I think, okay, so the first part to come up with different topics, but someone else isn't. Someone else can't. And that's sort of it. Well, I can do it, but you certainly can't do it. So you're this knuckle-dragging ex-mercenary, ex-military cop, private investigator. So clearly you couldn't have come up with that. I'm like, no, I don't do anything. I wish, hopefully in the future I can focus more and be as thoughtful and thought-provoking as you are, because you have a way of putting things and explaining things that hits things right on the head. And so I appreciate the work you do on a regular basis, my friend. We just go through life. There's a lot more men that are talking about some of these things than ever before. And I think that's to the benefit. The biggest traitors, and I think I mentioned this on one of my things, is the feminist men. Men who claim to be feminist. These feminized men who will fight you tooth and nail. And like I've had people send me DMs. I've had people try to send me threatening DMs. And literally, I can find out where you are. Like, look, I'm not trying to hide from anybody. And what I told one guy was this. I said, look, here's the truth, man. I said, if you walk up on me with positive energy, you'll get positive energy back. If you walk up on me with negative energy, I'm going to multiply it by 100. And you're going to get that back.
That's the thing. People think I'm a cunt. But I'm actually very the opposite. But I know how to be a cunt. People think kindness is weakness. Okay, I'll teach you I'll tell you something about strength, bitch. Got man or woman.
and it's unfortunate when we're in this world where people just think they can bully people into silence. And, as men, we can't allow, look, if men have been silent for too long, this is why we're in the position we're in right now. And so, I think about, my son is 18 years old. What type of world is my son going to inherit going forward? Is he going to inherit a world where men are completely ostracized and unmanned, and there's no strength anymore in the world? No, we shouldn't have things this way. Men should be strong, and if you're not strong, try to strengthen yourself, and work on it every day, and not just the physical strength, but the like gentleman himself, the moral courage to put yourself front and center and stand to be counted for what you believe. That's, for me, is the most important strength. And so again, watching other people, that gave me some of the strength to some of the, not strength, but some of the motivation to start posting. I used to keep a lot of this stuff to myself and just teach my son, because my goal was to make sure my son had the advantage on everybody else.
Yeah, I think it does, man.
May like what I explained to some people, it's okay. And if I can help, man, especially guys that want to investigate and vet their women at the front end. I know guys want to vet their women, investigate the women after they marry them, and so that's what we do. And again, I enjoy the impact I can have on people's lives and their futures, and for the most part, it's positive. And but also too, we help people put together the pieces on the back end. So like, I'll counsel guys before I embark on an investigation, especially if they're married guys, and I'll talk to them and say, okay, look, worst case scenario, what is your plan? And the reason I get them to go over that from that early stage is so that it's not a shock if we do come up with the worst case, the worst case information scenario. That way, you've already preconditioned them not to want to run away, but to focus their energy and efforts to extricating themselves, minimizing the damage as much as they can, and making a purposeful, thoughtful, and logical, decision-based course of action. So that the way it's not this emotional
outburst.
Private investigators have been used to track people down for other people that meant them harm. We had a big case here maybe a dozen years ago in Orlando, where a woman, pretty much, she was from a foreign country, married an older guy. As soon as she got married, she left him, like literally. And so he hired a private investigator to find her, and he deleted her at her place of work after the private investigator found her. And that's not the only instance where that's happened. And so I'm always careful, not just from that purpose, because most of the people who contact me are very logical and very thoughtful people, but to do that, but also too to help them as far as how they go forward, and like, I've had clients that have helped discover indiscretion from the house, and this woman maybe long term. So can you her for me? So I kind of think myself some of these,
Like so.
help people navigate some of these, and to help people through some really dark times. And man, it's unfortunate, but ultimately, men typically go through that by themselves.
The board of bitches.
And like some of the family friends we had that were supposed to be my friends as well too. Guess what? All of them, every single one of them, parted for me like the Red Seas did for Moses.
And guess what? Even the guys.
Everyone's, nope. Hey, guess what? The men especially the men, like, wanted nothing to do with me. And I was like, man, okay, I guess that's how that is. And married men are some of the most treacherous and traitorous men. They will tell other men who their marriages are miserable. Like, their wives aren't miserable. Yeah, they are. They're traitors. And like I said in one of my posts, they should be pushed into the sea. They should be pushed into the sea. But and they'll tell men, even though they're miserable, oh yeah, you should get married. One other red flag And I'm sure you probably have, if I'm going to guess, you probably have the same experience. So when I meet women, whether it's dating app or in the wild, it's so much easier to meet women in the wild than on a dating app. But dating apps are still. I just find them. I just got tired of them. You know what I mean? I met women, but just I met some weirdos, man. You know what I mean? Like some weird chicks, man. But if a woman talks from the very beginning about how religious she is and how much she goes to work, how much she goes to church. Here's what I know. Here's what I know with a certainty, almost 90% success rate. If I want fun, intimate bedroom activity with that woman, I can have it the first day.
Same thing what I was telling you about self-snitching. They'll tell you everything that they don't want you to believe. In the sense of, I'm all of that because I'm not really you.
And it's the shield. People use religion, from my experience, and this is going to be one of your exclusives for your people. They use religion as, and just my experience, my opinion, they use religion in two ways: as a shield or as a key, right? So we're going to focus on the shield part when we're talking about women. The shield is they're trying to shield themselves from their own base and carnal nature. They know their past. They know what their desires are, but they throw religion to try to shield themselves from what they actually want, which is to live their previous life, which is from their promiscuous past. Just my experience.
Can I ask you one thing? Can you sum up all the red flags and all that?
Yeah, sure. The last minute meeting with an ex, solo travel, girls' night out, girls' trip, male friends, the privacy with their phone, traveling for work, the free agent, if they work with a bunch of fire-breathing dragons, meaning like they're working with all the really tough guy alpha males, you know what I mean? Really manly professionals, soldiers, firefighters, police, construction, whatever it might be. If it's a male-dominated field, even if it's an office, that's a huge red flag. Promiscuous past is one of the biggest indicators of future or current infidelity. One I did not mention that I meant to, that's a really big one, is sudden or big changes in body composition or health. And so a woman that's had a bunch of liposuction, a bunch of cosmetic surgery, say they've had, fake boobs or whatever else put in, or they lost a bunch of weight, or they recovered from a long-term illness. Right? Now, we've seen women that were nursed back to health by guys that stayed with them while they were like ill for a very long time. When they got healthy, guess what? Adios.
Did we talk about the work husband on this one? Did you mention the work husband?
Yeah, we're talking about the co-workers, but
so that's
or
the
12th.
I don't think it was part of the first 11 you mentioned.
No, and so or a woman who's lost a bunch of weight. If you're with that woman, they talk about how if you don't want me at my worst, you shouldn't get me at my best. Well, here's the truth. If you take them at their worst, when they improve themselves or they get better, they're going to talk about how they outgrew you. I outgrew him. You know what I mean? We're growing in different directions. All that the psychobabble women will talk, and they'll use that as motivation or an excuse. And we've seen it time and time again, not just from the cases I've worked on, but in the media. We've seen cases of this all the time. Like, how many times have we heard about some dude donating a kidney to his wife, and then when she got better,
you know what they say? You know what they say to a woman? They say, when you grew both together, you're taking away men from her options. No, the man you're taking away from her options is you.
Yeah, and so that sums up everything. And there's many more. Obviously, these are some of the most egregious ones that guys really like. You can't ignore these. Now, none of these is proof positive that they are being unfaithful, but this is, again, we're talking about infidelity indicators. These are indicators of infidelity, either currently or in the future. And so, if you look at these things, they should set off a warning flag, and you should start watching and monitoring that woman's behavior much more closely.
On that, I think that we pretty much wrap up the pod. I mean, whoa, this is the longest pod I ever did, man. So much content, so much material. Oh no! I honestly enjoyed, man. This is top level shit, man. The level of information that people will get from this is invaluable, and that to you, I'm really grateful for the time that you actually spent with us discussing this.
Thank you so much for
Anyway, do you have
inviting
any
me and
last
having me on,
words?
my friend. Thank you so much. And it was good to talk to you. Well, you know what? One of these days, if I'm in the UK or if you're in Florida, we got to sit down and have a drink and go out carousing. There's a few spots I'm sure you'll enjoy visiting.
Yes.
To talk about later on, my friend. But if any of your people want to get in touch with me, just look for Private Investigator Russ at Gmail or message
And
me
can I
on
ask you, are you
Messenger
top
on X,
or
Private I
North
Russ.
or South Florida?
I'm in Central Florida, so I'm in New
All
York.
right, yeah, okay, fine.
So I work all over Florida. Actually, I work all over the United States. I'm actually traveling next week to Texas for a case. Somebody hired me on. I've got cases going on in California. And so what I'll do is, even where my license isn't active or like isn't transferable, I'll consult with their investigators on cases to help them work out. And so a lot of one I'm working on right now. I can't talk about it, but it's in the news right now in Central Florida as a false, what we think is
But
a
yeah,
false allegation case.
with all those
So who knows?
claims, Me Too, and all that stuff, I'm sure you're going to be very busy.
You know what? It's an art. You know, you've got to be really, really careful about it. And it's science, but there's an art to helping men get out of these charges.
Sure you are.
And so we have to do it.
Well, thank you everyone for having watched and kept through the show, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. On this, we close the podcast, and I'll see you soon.